Hi, I'm Micah.
Before we get started, we have a couple announcements for you guys. We were kind of lazy, we didn't make an announcement video. There's going to be no Bob Ross tonight.
No,
but
sorry.
we do have a newbie desk, which is kind of like Bob Ross. If this is your first time here, we are glad that you're here. Go downstairs to the newbie desk where you get your cotton candy and your snacks, and you can get free cotton candy. Actually, you will get free cotton candy if this is your first time here.
Yeah, and guys, there's little cards down there that we'd love for you guys to sign up. It's just a better way for us to get to know you better, and for you guys to get connected with the youth a little bit better.
Next Sunday, there's no youth. Next Wednesday, and by that I mean this Wednesday, there's no life groups. Don't go to either of those because we won't be here. That'd be pretty boring.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. If you look around, there's Bible and prayer cards, either underneath your chair, you guys are holding them. If you guys want to go ahead and fill these out, if you guys have any prayer requests, go ahead and do so. Be as discreet as you want to. If you don't want to write your name, peace. But guys, this is just a great way for us to be able to pray for you. Every week our leaders get together and pray over these cards. So if you guys have anything going on, just go ahead and grab one of those cards and fill it out.
If you don't have a Bible, that Bible's yours. Please take it home and use it, write in it. This Friday, Friday of the Black Variety, we're going to come together and watch Nebraska beat up on Iowa at 11 a.m. Immediately following the game, we'll be playing our own game of tackle football out in the yard over here. It's going to be pretty hype. It's our third year we've done it now. Third year going strong. Girls are welcome too. We play two-hand touch for girls on guys, but tackle for girls on girls and tackle for guys on guys. So girls come. It's a pretty interesting dynamic when a beefy guy gets touched and he's down. So it makes for a good time. Since Taylor isn't going to be here tonight, we figured you guys could use a little Taylor impression before we got started. So don't miss me. Don't miss this, guys. Don't miss this. Hear me. It looks like we have college kids vaping in here. Don't miss this.
Put your phone down. Come on, man. Come on. How's it going, man? I'm Micah. That was a light handshake. That was light.
Micah, you're embarrassing the kids.
I am so sorry. So there was this time before that I was actually playing like tackle football, and I said that to another guy, and he started squaring off with me. It was really weird. Wasn't ready for it at all. He pushed me. I fell down. It took me completely off guard. It was shocking.
Funny chose. We'll get parent emails later. Parents, you can email egeyer@lifegateomaha.com. We have a care department. But man, I really just feel like we need to stop messing around and just get into the message. So let's do that. Something about Tozer. Before we get started, the passage we're preaching on tonight is Matthew 10, but we felt like there's a foundational verse that kind of lays the foundation before that, and it's Romans 13:1.
And that says, "For there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God."
So this kind of lays the concrete foundation that all authority on heaven and on earth is God's. God owns it. But yet, in Matthew chapter 10, verse 1, it says that Jesus gave authority to his disciples. It actually says that in the ESV version, Jesus gave them authority. So God has all the authority, but yet we've been given some of this authority. And then later on in chapter 10, verse 8, God actually calls us to go and use this authority. It's not just something that we're supposed to keep and have and make ourselves feel good, but we're supposed to go out and use this. He says to his disciples to go out and heal the sick and cleanse the lepers and raise the dead. This is actually the first time that Jesus gives any supernatural power to anyone, and he chooses to give it to his disciples or to you and me. And so it's kind of interesting that in this one chapter, God first qualifies us, and then he authorizes us. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about tonight. The idea that God has qualified and authorized everybody in this room to do his work.
Yeah, we have the most authority when we are humble. Isaiah 66 verse 2 says, "Has not my hand made all these things, so they came into being, declares the Lord. These are the ones I look on with favor, those who are humble and contrite in spirit, and ones who tremble at my word." Guys, being humble plays into having authority. The more humble you are, the more authority you're going to have. The more that of you that gets in the way, and the less God can work through you. So if you just completely pour out and empty yourself like a vessel and then allow God to fill you, that's when God can really move through you. Moses was one of the most humble men in the Bible. It's that, and I mean, this guy, he split the Red Sea. It's not a little deal.
No big deal.
Yeah.
Split it.
I mean, and through it all, he stayed humble, and God continued to use him through it all. I mean, between having a water pour out of a rock and talking to God on a mountain, I mean, it's just incredible. But God requires us to be humble.
Yeah, and this authority that we've been given isn't something that we have to level up to use. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that you have to become a level 17.2 Christian who goes on missionary trips every other Friday to use this authority. This authority was given to regular fishermen who just so happen to follow Jesus. And this authority is given to regular people who cashier at Walmart who follow Jesus. It's not for the special or elite Christians among us. It's just for the people who follow God.
All right, so where can we have more authority in our lives? I think it really comes down to prayer. Prayer is one of the biggest tools that God has given us to have authority in. And if we segregate our time for prayer for 15 minutes right before we go to bed, we're missing it. We're completely throwing out one of the best tools God has given us. Guys, it says in 1 Thessalonians
5:16-18.
Rejoice always, pray without ceasing, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus. And this doesn't mean just go around saying Jesus, 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 right? It's not that. What he wants from us is just to honestly be in communion with him. So when you're entering school or going to the grocery store, I mean, just be willing to say, hey God, is there anything that I can pray for? Anybody in here that I can pray for? If so, point them out to me. Just be willing to be used by God. And if he does put something on your heart, be willing to go up to that person and pray for them. It can really impact somebody's life, but we have to be willing.
Yeah, and God isn't going to mess around when he speaks to you. If you want God to speak to you and you're like, God, I want to pray for somebody, show me who to pray for, God's not going to toy with you. I was thinking about this, and recently we got to foster, it was either 4 or 5 little baby kittens at our house. Basically, the Humane Society gives you everything you need to take care of these kittens, and you just get to love on them until they're big enough to sell. It's kind of like raising cattle, but you don't end up eating the kittens. What we did to play with these cats is we take a little jingle bell and we tied it on the end of a string, and we just kind of hold it in midair, and they'd all attack it right in the middle. And that's the opposite of what God does when we ask him who we can pray for. God doesn't mess around with you. If you close your eyes and you ask God, who would you like me to pray for in my life? The first 2 or 3 names that come to your head, man, those are the people that you need to be praying for. Those are the people that we need to be praying for if we want to see lives changed. And this idea of who we can be praying for, I've kind of been asking myself that the last couple weeks. And I think the answer that I got was, man, I need to be praying for the people at my work. I've worked at Hy-Vee for the last couple of years now. I now work in the meat department, and I get to spend my afternoons chopping up cold, dead chickens. It's an interesting way to make money. There's some great people back there, and I really like working there. But, man, when you ask the question, do my coworkers know that I'm a Christian? And I don't know if I can answer that question with an honest yes right now. I haven't been there that long, but that's no excuse to hide my beliefs and hide my God. I mean, Jesus tells us to give this love away freely. We have to obey that.
Recently, I was coming back from Italy on a 9-hour plane ride. It got really exhausting, so you have to stand up and walk around, otherwise your leg would fall asleep, and it was awful. But on one of these times when I was standing up and walking around, there was this lady that I noticed, and I really felt like God placed in my heart to pray for her health. And I got really nervous, and I really didn't want to sit down, in the seat next to her, then slide over a few on people's laps, and then try praying for her, because that would have been really awkward. I asked God to give me a specific situation. And it was when we were about halfway through the plane ride that I had to use the restroom, and I stood up and got in line, and this lady was right in front of me. And it was the perfect opportunity. But I got really nervous and freaked out. I'm like, God, it doesn't feel right. But God's like, no, this is what I have for you right now. I freaked out. I decided not to do it, and I sat back down. And I felt really bad for that. God twisted it in me. I missed it. I missed an opportunity he had for me. So I'm like, all right, God, I would love another shot at this. And then soon enough, we landed in Chicago, and our plane ride got canceled. And Caleb was done. He didn't know how to handle it. We had to spend the night in Chicago airport. Cold, miserable, awful. Don't recommend it. But so soon enough, Caitlin went to use the restroom, and I looked around, and here's this lady. She was sitting by herself, nobody around her, and God, again, elbowed me, saying, "This is your opportunity." Guys, I panicked again. I missed it again. I could have walked up to her and prayed for what he had put in my heart, but instead, I turned around and walked, grabbed Starbucks, and went on my way. Guys, the worst thing that could have happened is me walking up to her, praying for her, and then nothing happened. But even then, God still would have used that opportunity, because he still would have used that later down the road, even if we had not seen immediate results right then. And if he had healed her, that's fantastic. But I didn't even give him that opportunity to be able to move. I missed it.
Yeah, towards the end of the section that Emma read, in 10 verse 8, it says, "Freely you have received, now give freely." This love of Christ thing, this love is omnipresent and it's omnipotent, and that means that it's everywhere and it's all powerful. If you think of anything that's prominent in today's culture, God's love is more prominent. I was talking to the middle schoolers, and their opinion was that Fortnite was more prominent than oxygen atoms. I'm not sure about that, but God's love is definitely more prominent than Fortnite. And basically, we have to get a hold of this idea that it's okay to be anxious, right? Like Micah was anxious to talk to this lady. I'm anxious to talk to the people who I work with, and for good reason. If you're walking up to someone and you have no idea what you're going to say to them or what you're going to tell them, that's a great reason to be anxious. But it kind of fails when we look at the rest of this chapter. In Matthew 10:17 through 19, it says, "Beware of men, for they'll deliver you over to their courts and flog you in their synagogues. You'll be dragged before governors and kings for my sake, to bear witness before them and the Gentiles. When they deliver you over, do not be anxious how you are to speak or what you are to say. For what you are to say will be given to you in that hour. For it's not you who speak, but the Spirit of the Father speaking through you." And man, we don't have to worry about what we're going to say, because if you're the one talking, you're doing it wrong. I mean, if you're not letting God speak through you, that's not his plan for us. It's our plan that God comes and speaks through us, and we're just carriers of his word. You know, our words aren't supposed to stick.
And guys, we're probably not going to be handed over in the synagogues to be flogged, but situations, probably not. The situations are going to arise in our life, like my plane ride, where I freaked out and let myself get in the way of what God gave back. You just have to fully rely on what God has, and he's going to speak through you if you're willing to. And even though I wasn't willing, I mean, there's other circumstances where he has, and guys, it's amazing what he can do, but we have to be willing.
So in this one chapter, chapter 10, God qualifies us and authorizes us to use his authority, right? To pray for people, to heal the sick, to cleanse the lepers, and to heal the dead. But then, after he gives us this authority, 4 separate times, I think it's in verse 19, 26, 28, and 31, you can check me on those, God says something like, "Do not fear," or "Don't be anxious," to his disciples or to the people around him. And it makes sense. Because if it's not our words coming out, there's no reason to be afraid about what we're going to say, because God's the one who's going to be backing us up. God doesn't toy with us, and God's not going to leave us hanging if we choose to trust him.
I've been asking lately myself, where has my life been lacking authority? And where has it been? And has it been? And guys, I can honestly say, like the plane ride, it's been lacking some authority. But how do I get more? Like, where do I go to? Honestly, it just comes down to spending time with God. It's not just that 15 minutes at the end of the day. Bible study is great, go for it. I highly recommend that. But guys, turn on some music, worship music when you're going to school. Spend some time with God throughout the day. And the more comfortable you are hearing his voice, the more comfortable you are going to be saying what he's told you. And
this whole idea of authority really applies to anybody who's on the fence about this whole Christianity thing. If you don't call yourself a Christian, we're really glad that you're here, and we're really glad that you came tonight. And this message is kind of just an example of what life can look like when we choose to live life in fullest, when we value Christ, when we value his love first, when we choose to give away this love freely because we've received it freely. Man, that's what life can look like. A life full of authority and humility when we submit to God and choose to love others.
So at this time, we're going to call it
worship team. But before they come up, I highly encourage you guys to spread out, get alone with God. This is an awesome opportunity for you guys to ask for, who can I pray for in my life?
Yeah, if you ask that question, we were just talking about God, who would you have me pray for? Man, take this time to pray for those people. If they're in this room, take this time to pray for those people. If they're not in this room, take this time to pray for those people. Ask God for more authority. Ask God for humility. And ask God who you can be praying for. Man, that's powerful.
That's good.
Give it up for worship.